Vietnam is located on the eastern margin of the Indo-Chinese Peninsula and occupies about 331,261 square kilometers, of which about 25% was under cultivation in 1987. It borders the Gulf of Thailand, Gulf of Tonkin, the Pacific Ocean, China, Laos, and Cambodia. The S-shaped country has a north-south distance of 1,650 kilometers and is about 50 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. It has a coastline of 3,261 kilometers, excluding islands. The boundary with Laos settled on both an ethnic and geographic basis between the rulers of Vietnam and Laos in the mid-17th century, with the Ammonite Range as a reference, was formally defined by a delimitation treaty signed in 1977 and ratified in 1986. The frontier with Cambodia, defined at the time of the French annexation of the western part of the Mekong Delta in 1867, remained essentially unchanged until some unresolved border issues were finally resolved between 1982 and 1985. The land and sea boundary with China, delineated under the France-Chinese treaties of 1887 and 1895, is the frontier line accepted by Hanoi that China agreed to in 1957 and 58 respectively. The country is divided into the Highlands and the Red River Delta in the north, and the Day Trong Song or the Central Mountains, the coastal lowlands, and the Mekong Delta in the south. Vietnam is a country of tropical lowlands, hills, and densely forested highlands, with level land covering no more than 20% of the area. The Red River Delta is a flat triangular region of about 15,000 square kilometers. It is small but intensely developed and more densely populated than the Mekong Delta. Once an inlet to the Gulf of Tonkin, it has been filled by the enormous alluvial deposits of the rivers over a period of millennia, and it advances 100 meters into the Gulf annually. The ancestral home of ethnic Vietnamese, the Delta accounted for more than 70% of the agriculture and 80% of the industry in North Vietnam before 1975. The Red River, rising from China's Yunnan province, is about 1,200 meters long. Its two main tributaries, the Song Lo, or Clear River, or the Song Da, the Black River, contribute to its high water volume, which averages 4,300 cubic meters per second. The entire delta region, backed by the steppe rises of the forested highlands, is no more than 3 meters above sea level, and much of it is 1 meter or less. The area is subject to frequent flooding. At some places, the high water mark of the floods is 14 meters above the surrounding countryside. For centuries, flood controls have been an integral part of the Delta's culture and economy. An extensive system of dikes and canals has been built to contain the Red River and to irrigate the rich rice-growing Delta, modeled on that of China's. This ancient system has sustained a highly concentrated population and has made double cropping wet rice cultivation possible throughout about half of the region. The highlands and mountain plateaus in the north and northwest are inhabited mainly by tribal minority groups. The Day Trong Song, or Ammonite Range, originates in the Tibetan and Yunnan regions of southwest China and forms Vietnam's border with Laos. It terminates in the Mekong Delta north of Ho Chi Minh City. These central mountains, which have several high plateaus, are irregular in elevation and form, and the northern section is narrow and very rugged. The country's highest peak is in the extreme northwest and rises to 3,142 meters. The southern portion has numerous spurs and divide the narrow coastal strip into a series of compartments. For centuries, these topographical features not only rendered north and south communication difficult, but also formed an effective natural barrier for the containment of the people living in the Mekong Basin. Within the southern portion of Vietnam is a plateau known as the Central Highlands, approximately 51,800 square kilometers of rugged mountain peaks, extensive forest, and rich soil, comprising 5 relatively flat plateaus of basalt soil spreading over several provinces. The highlands account for 16% of the country's arable and 22% of its total forested lands. Before 1975, North Vietnam had maintained the Central Highlands and the Day Trong Song were the strategic area of paramount importance, essential to the domination of not only South Vietnam, but also the southern part of Indochina. Since 1975, the highlands have provided an area in which to relocate people from the densely populated lowlands. The narrow, flat coastal lowlands extend from the south of the Red River Delta to the Mekong River Basin. On the landward side, the Dei Trong Song rises precipitously above the coast, its spurs jutting into the ocean at several places. Generally, the coastal strip is fertile and rice is cultivated intensely. The Mekong Delta covers about 40,000 square kilometers. It is a low-level plain, not more than 3 meters above sea level at any point, and crisscrossed by a maze of canals and rivers. So much sediment is carried by the Mekong's various branches and tributaries that the delta advances 60 to 80 meters into the sea every year. An official Vietnamese source estimates the amount of sediment deposited annually to be about 1 billion cubic meters, or nearly 13 times the amount deposited by the Red River. The 10,000 square kilometers of delta are under rice cultivation, making the area one of the major rice-growing regions of the world. The southern tip, known as the Ka Ma Mountains, is covered with dense jungle and mangrove swamps. The Mekong, which is 4,220 kilometers long, is one of the 12 great rivers of the world. From its source in the Tibetan Plateau, it flows through the Tibetan and Yunnan regions of China, forms the boundary between Laos and Myanmar, as well as between Laos and Thailand. It continues through Cambodia and the Mekong Basin before draining into the South China Sea through 9 mouths known as the 9 Dragons. The river is heavily silted and is navigable to seagoing craft into Cambodia. Vietnam and the northern regions has a humid subtropical climate with the average humidity of 84% throughout the year. However, because of differences in latitude and the marked variety of topographical relief, the climate tends to vary considerably from place to place. During the winter or dry seasons, extended roughly from November to April, the monsoon winds usually blow from the northeast along the China coast and across the Gulf of Tonkin, picking up considerable moisture. Consequently, the winter season in most parts of the country is dry only by comparison to the rainy or summer season. During the southwesterly summer monsoon, occurring from May to October, the heated air of the Gobi Desert rises far to the north, inducing moist air to flow inland from the sea and deposit heavy rainfall. The climate in the southern region, especially Ho Chi Minh City and surrounding Mekong Delta, is predominantly tropical savanna climate with high humidity and a distinct wet dry season.